When I was around 12 or 13, I painted a series of comic characters on the white walls of my room. In retrospect, I think each embodied a different aspect of my personality. From up on the hill, the afternoon sunlight would glint off of the glass-covered Hancock Building in downtown Boston through the window above my bed. The smell of my mom's beans and rice infused the air from the kitchen downstairs. I painted the expressive face of the child philosopher Calvin, the angsty, katana-wielding Ninja Turtle Leonardo, and the thick-headed, big-hearted, ridiculous blue superhero called the Tick. I also did a piece prominently displaying the word imagination in all caps. Other than honoring these favorites, my greatest joy was letting my own characters pour out of me and onto the pages of my sketchbooks. Animals, dragons, and other creatures couldn't help but come to life along the margins during math class too. During my time at art school and through my 20s and 30s, I sketched for hours and hours a day. Recently, I realized that I don't spend nearly as much time letting images flow from my mind as I used to. Even though I paint for a living, I feel like I spend hours and hours a day tending to emails, text messages, and those red dot alerts on social media. It takes more effort now than it ever has before to maintain a straight line of thought. Admittedly, I listen to a fair amount of podcasts and can be found on the couch in the evenings keeping up with movies and shows. I think a lot of us have allowed our intimate relationship with daydreaming to get seduced by the siren's call of content across all of our regular platforms. It's no accident that we've become conditioned to check our screens and devices so often that it takes extra effort to prop open the door to our personal headspace. What I took for granted back then is invaluable now. Why this is essential is a seed I wanted to plant at the start so we can return to it later on. Hi, my name is Adam Doyle, and I'm an artist and illustrator. I'm here to share my thoughts with you on the importance of art as we transition into the next stage of our evolution. Now, the significance of art in our culture may very well be obvious to you already, but I feel like this is a great opportunity to be specific for the various ways in which it can serve our best intentions. How and why art is key will be addressed with two overarching themes. The first is about how art is an excellent means for us to help include those who are thus far reluctant to accepting the idea that there's a lot more beyond what we call a normal life. More to the point, it'll be nice if disclosure happens gradually, but it's also possible that it'll happen in an abrupt and surprising way. So if we can, we want to be able to prepare our friends and family by gently easing them into the oncoming paradigm shift. And the second point I will address is why artists are key to providing what we want the new earth to look and feel like. In order for us to be able to be confident that we're collectively walking on the same path towards our shared future, it'll be beneficial to have images, stories, and music that we can agree on as going in the ideal direction. In this talk, I'll touch upon why we don't need to wait for the government to come clean, why AI is like junk food, and how we can learn from the colorful flowers that once broke Paris. Since my background is in painting, I'll mostly be speaking in those terms, but the thrust applies to all acts of creation and communication related to our journey of coexistence. Basically, I'm here to inspire you to share your wisdom with the world. One of the formative principles of art is that it embodies the experience we are having of living life. From the earliest days of pigment smeared on cavern walls, art is the conversation we are having with ourselves and with our culture. So that when it comes to the increasingly relevant transition from third to fifth density, we now have a golden opportunity to allow our artwork to be of use to show everyone where we want to go. My call to action is about sharing a multifaceted vision for the near future. By art, I'm implicitly including the pictures we make, the videos, the dances, the songs, the stories, and any other form of expression that conveys what is meaningful to you. Art is an invitation to understand. Most people are overwhelmed most of the time. You don't have to be a sociologist to realize that what we consider modern society is past due to be updated to better suit us as human beings. Where is the line between who we are as sovereign souls and the shape we've been prodded into by authoritative forces over the course of human history? That's a really good question. It's going to become increasingly clear to us in the years ahead. If you've chosen to come to this symposium, chances are that you're already aware of how much humanity has been habituated to trust the system and those in power. So, let's start by calling out these leviathans for their role in maintaining the herd mindset, and then we'll have a clearer sense for how we can use art to speak truth to power. We're beginning to wise up to the fact that most of the narratives that have conditioned our beliefs have served to deny our divine autonomy. Historically, the monarchy and the church determined what information to pass down to the populace. Therefore, those who held the power held the knowledge, thus making it a tenet of social control. We can also do better than to continue to put all of our faith in religions with a God that is to be obeyed and feared. We're done kneeling before royalty. We're done with dictators. We're beginning to understand how our bodies have been contorted to fit into the societal structures for greater efficiency. Get up, go to work, pay bills, repeat. The church's presiding over the looming apocalypse has kept people huddled down in fear for a very long time. We can stay informed without letting the news machine continue to bombard us with every morsel of disaster day in and day out. The scientific method is a beautiful approach to understanding how things work, but it's also limited by what tools are available at the time. Just because science academia can't yet measure something doesn't mean it's non-existent. Furthermore, the education system itself doesn't teach kids how to think or work together. It teaches them how to sit still and be obedient. These days, big tech has taken the cake, keeping us infatuated with gadgets and the prospect of virtual reality being better than the real thing. We know that our energy flows where our attention goes. So why are we not more pissed off by the very idea of the attention economy? For as much as it connects us, it also feeds off of us like an energetic vampire. And while the entertainment industry has moments where the truth leaks through, what we like to call soft disclosure, their main concern is staying profitable. Of course, Netflix will release more documentaries on UFO abductions, but that's still mainly going to reach people who are already on board. We can forgive our well-meaning parents for doing their best because they were raised to be dogmatic of the system too. One thing that all authoritative organizations have in common is that they're serving their own interests, no matter how clever their advertising campaigns are. Take the basic notion that being successful means making a lot of money, or that buying skincare cream or a new Tesla makes you more attractive, that Cocoa Puffs is a central part of a healthy breakfast. We have to get better at setting our boundaries with these institutions. We have to get better at finding the balance we need to be present and joyful in the lives we have. It starts with learning from each other, with daily practices of mindfulness, and remembering the wisdom we all have is within us. Guidance through the labyrinth has always been available from shamans, mystics, gurus, artists, writers, philosophers, revolutionaries, ufologists, and fringe scientists. Over the decades, there have been many selfless souls fighting the good fight for governmental disclosure, calling on politicians to admit to the reverse engineering, the underground bases, and the deals that were made at the expense of our well-being. While we're grateful to the whistleblowers who speak before Congress and even all those who debate endlessly on Reddit whether videos of orbs are real or CGI, I'm here to advocate for an additional, generally more nuanced approach. This is the space where art is born. What each of us has to say about where we're at and where we want to go is important. We have a voice and we can support each other. Let's make a case for the wonderful future we are building for ourselves. Let's use what talents we have to educate and inform the public through the language of beauty, harmony, flavors, melodies, metaphors, and symbols. This is the time for humanity to come together as divine beings and bend the system to serve our needs. Let's lay down a blueprint for the structure we want to build after the bars of our invisible prison have been dismantled. Collectively, we can use art to show us the way forward. Let's get everybody on the same page. Some people get what they know through experiences that have happened to them. Some people get what they know through extensive research. Either way, here we are, and we see things from outside of the box. So grab your pencils and squeeze out some paint. Make stuff like you did when you were 5 years old. Give yourself permission to be messy and imperfect. Let's not forget that art is fun. If you're not inclined towards expressing yourself through art, please bring your dedication to the conversation. We need you. We need your perspective, your energy, and most of all, your big heart. I'm good at working alone in my studio, but I am not great at rallying people to come out for an event. You might be a natural at stirring up excitement for a cause you believe in. You might be great at lifting people up by offering just the right quote at just the right time. Some of us are introverts, some of us are extroverts. Capricorns are hardworking and direct, whereas, Virgos are more analytical and patient. What are your strengths? I recently learned about manifestors, generators, projectors, and reflectors. I'm a manifesting generator. Like the X-Men, we all have a power that we bring to the team. If you haven't done so already, seek out art that speaks to you and let the artist know you're there. I am so grateful for the encouragement I get from people who find me online. Artists love cheerleaders, we really do. When my subject matter started to include less birds and more UFOs and ETs, my audience wasn't overly enthusiastic about the shift. To be honest, though, it's been emotionally discouraging and even more difficult than it was before to make a living. But I know this is the right thing to do. So please, reach out, say hi, share your thoughts and concerns. Think about the ways you can build networks. If you're able to do so, hire artists for your company. Let your community know why you love the work that you do and connect with those who you admire. Of course, we're not talking about people who are just trying to be popular. We're not here to help inflate egos of those just looking for more attention. We need the fruits of labor from those who go through the humbling process that comes with doing the solitary work. We need to amplify the songs and symbols and the stories that provide us with the scene just over the horizon. Let's support the shy ones with the big hearts. Let's hire the artists who put their souls into their pictures and their hope in their songs. We can all be actively involved in tending to this beautiful communal garden. Okay, so how did I get here? Well, back in the fall of 2019, before the pandemic had fully gripped the States, I started working on a manuscript called The Book of Inspiration. In it, I had 45 chapters on a wide range of topics. It started with the familiar, then the productive day, going for a walk outside, animal companionship, and then next came secrets, and then war, role-playing, drugs and medicine, dreams, travel, the limitations of capitalism, science and its search for truth, and then the supernatural and into the unknown. It was doing research for the last sections that my understanding of things got seriously leveled up. I'd always loved fantasy and science fiction. I read a wide variety of fringe topics, and I grew up with energy healing through my dad, who was an acupuncturist. But these had always been peripheral interests. After a few years of poking holes in the veil, the light of truth became blinding, and my priorities shifted dramatically. I think that's what happens to most people who wake up, right? So there's a psychology term for when a person's worldview goes through a dramatic change. It's called ontological shock. These days, heads around the world are starting to pop like popcorn. Once you break through, you kind of know that understanding the true nature of consciousness and reality is the most important thing that there is. Even though I had a successful career making covers for best-selling authors, I just became less interested in working in mainstream publishing. Instead, I've been seeking out collaborations with those who are making a difference in the new frontier. During this period where I was diving deep to get as many sources of information as I could, I found my way to Elena Danon's videos on YouTube. Honestly, at first, I dismissed her. At that time, she was talking about adjusting frequencies and messages from the Pleiades, but eventually, I found more corroboration for her accounts, and I read a few of her books, and then I just basically came to understand that she's the real deal. After she reported that the Galactic Federation of Worlds had freed Earth from the Orion Collective in December of 2021, I felt inspired to paint an image that represented my gratitude. I emailed it to her, and she responded with the most wonderful thank you. I knew Elena was working on her next book, but I was really surprised and delighted when several months later she asked if she could use it for the cover. I was thrilled, and I offered to design it for her. I had a similar experience with Dr. Michael Salla. Initially, I found his reporting on exopolitics to be way out there, but again, I started reading his books and realized the validity of his reporting. So when I vet multiple sources and their information overlaps in ways that I just can't dismiss, I pay attention. One of my favorite guests of Dr. Salla's is the U.S. Army insider known as JP. I reached out to Dr. Salla with a few pieces that he ended up putting in his first book about JP, but it was when he was putting his finishing touches on the follow-up that he invited me to create the cover. As is my standard approach, I sketched out dozens of options for us to choose from before we decided on what would become the final image. Both of these collaborations were truly gratifying, and I am honored to have been involved, and I hope doing more in the future. It was essential that the images appeal to their existing audience, but in addition, I also wanted to reach readers who are new to the fold. It's important that doubters and skeptics feel welcome too. Now, here we get to the point. That's what beautiful images can do. That's the magic of art. When done well, it can circumvent the wall of assumptions we have built up and connect directly with our hearts. With so many people coming out and offering their testimonies, there are more and more opportunities for artists to offer their skills and their service. I charge for my work, and you should too. We need to support each other as we build this bridge to the new world because we're all in this together. Again, a key aspect to why we're making art of this nature is critical is that it's a viable way to reach people who are still entrenched in the system. Chances are that you've tried the direct approach at some point and found that friends aren't always receptive to hearing about reincarnation, aliens in the Bible, or reptilians. Responses can range from being dismissive to outright anger. People have their hands full already and generally don't see any reason to think about this stuff. Everybody's keeping up with all the spinning plates of daily life. But that, my friends, that's where art comes in. Art is subtle. Art is clever. Art leaves the door open so that people can come inside of their own free will. Art interacts through beauty, mystery, and symbolism. When done well, it subverts the barriers we put up to protect ourselves from the unknown and the uncomfortable. Art can navigate around our thorn-covered assumptions that encase our ego and whisper with sincerity into the small space held for childlike wonder. It's not easy, but it's doable, and it's worth the effort. Have you had dreams that are more real than waking life? Have you had notable past life regressions? Has your research of many sources revealed profound insights? Have you had visions or gotten downloads? Have you had direct contact with other intelligent beings? If so, you have stuff to share. It's one thing to know. That's a big deal. The next level is helping others to awaken as well. So, we're talking about creating for the new earth. What does that mean? Can anything be relevant? Well, in order to be useful and applicable, we need our work to include a degree of clarity and intention. Star Trek is a great example of a narrative that's a model for society. I love Star Trek. In a word, Discovery is sharp, Picard is sweet, and Strange New World is fun. Gene Roddenberry had an informed vision for how humanity and other species can work together for the greater good. But there's room for much more than what's produced from one franchise. Our awakening culture deserves stories that aren't all entwined with big budget productions. The narratives and visions we need must also come from people like you and I. And if we're on course for catastrophic disclosure, where the big reveal happens all at once, all the more reason for us to prepare our family and friends and communities with incremental doses to help them ease into the grand revelations. There are many ways to break through to the other side of the box. To name a few, it can be by way of energy healing, or through understanding the expansiveness of consciousness, or the regular appearances of UFOs. For a little while, my invitation to friends started with the idea that UFOs are real. Even though these distinct crafts are so familiar to everyone, not all are in agreement that they're anything more than classic icons from science fiction. And yet, they're great symbols for conveying the idea that there is life beyond Earth. If you know what to look for, they're like Where's Waldo through art history. The long history of UFOs in paintings is not taught in any school system that I'm aware of. As clear as they are, they've been dismissed, ignored, and ridiculed. It hasn't helped that most book covers and movie posters about UFOs from the past 50 years tend towards the dark and creepy. Crafts are usually looming in star-filled night skies, emitting tractor beams to snatch up cows and terrified people. Shining a light on the dark history is important for getting a solid handle on where we're at. I mean, abductions, MKUltra, the secret space program, everyone needs to know about this stuff. But what we don't need to do is promote or prolong more fear. Let's set our sights on the light at the end of the tunnel. Getting across that UFOs deserve more attention can be tricky since they come with so much baggage. And let's be honest, it hasn't always been clear who's been in the driver's seat. I mainly want to focus on the positive aspects. How to handle this really comes down to being present to where culture is at right now. It's the responsibility of each generation of artists to find new ways to convey concepts that are fresh and engaging to current audiences. So, for example, one of the approaches I came up with for myself has been to paint landscapes and cityscapes bask in pastel sunsets and autumnal foliage, so that the soothing saturation invites the viewer into the scene. Then the UFO becomes apparent. The juxtaposition of the beautiful sky and the craft changes the viewer's expectations. I did a few that include the observant presence of a familiar domestic cat. There's no narrative angle here. It's all about setting the scene. And the scene is UFOs are real. Only now we're starting to see a tipping point towards acceptance. So I ask, what can you come up with? In 1929, a philosopher, better known as a surrealist painter, Rene Magritte, completed a simple image titled The Treachery of Images. It's famously frustrated a lot of people for a long time. We generally know it better for the phrase written below, "This is not a pipe." If you're a little confused, that's the point Magritte was making. Here it is. A pipe is made out of wood. It can be held, filled with tobacco, and gingerly smoked. A painting is a flat representation. How often do we mistake a representation for the real thing? I would say a lot more now than was the case over 100 years ago. What do you think Magritte would have to say about the new burst of technological programs that do an impressive trick of taking representation to a whole new level? Since we're talking about the importance of art going forward, I have to address a recent development that is having a dramatic effect on how we make and experience art. Now, I'm not against AI all of the time. It's excellent for customizing searches and making medical diagnosis, among many other things, right? But there are many reasons why AI in the creative space is toxic, like how it steals from artists and at the same time siphons money away from them and into corporate pockets. For the moment, though, let's consider a few points that addresses what we're sacrificing by succumbing to this simulation. Part of why we relate to art is that it resonates at a deep level the experience of being alive. Whether or not you like a piece is totally up to you. But until recently, the implicit understanding has been that it came to life directly from the hands of a human being. That's fundamentally why we care. Walk through an art museum and you know you're in the presence of the human condition in all of its forms. But these days, we spend so much time receiving information through our screens that we've lost that energetic exchange that comes with the real thing. Which means that whether we're scrolling through a painting made by the hands of a person or by a genie-like program, it can be hard to tell the difference. What's the issue with that? Well, if a program can simulate anything, why should we care? There are always hidden costs with taking the easy route. An electric bicycle can get us where we want to go with less effort, but exercise is actually a benefit of biking. The texture and flavor of fast food can be delicious, but try living off McDonald's and your body won't get enough nourishment to survive. Art-generating AI offers a tempting shortcut, but the involved relationship with creation is gone. It produces images, but there's no soulful nourishment. Art is about sharing in the meaning of life. If we get to the point where we can't tell the difference between what's made by a human being and what's machine-generated, our innate desire to care withers away. What happens to society where everyone loses their connection to art? I don't know. It's never happened before. Standing face to face with actual paint on canvas has a presence to it that resonates at the same energy as being face to face with another person. In many ways, it looks like we're starting to forget that art isn't always experienced through screens. This goes for movies and shows as well. As they get assimilated into artificiality, we'll detach because intuitively we'll feel the absence of the human connection. Noam Chomsky said that these kind of programs should be called plagiarism software. The people who program DALL-E and Midjourney treat art as if it's a safe that can be cracked or a computer that can be hacked. These devices are imposters built on ego and deprived of all essential humility. Frankly, they're another tool of social control, as they instill a dependence upon a product that encourages artists' natural skill to atrophy. Let's not give our talents or our investment away to another corporate system. As we envision how we want to build a new earth, let's just leave AI out of the studio. Let's not give our creativity over to the machine. We have a choice, and I say, let's choose humanity. In fact, I just like to suggest that we be a little more discerning about allowing technology to assimilate into all aspects of our lives. Every little concession we make convinces people that we can't do amazing things ourselves. That's what big tech and all other authoritative institutions we talked about don't want us to know, right? The thing is, we can do it all. As a post-Atlantean civilization, we have to maintain a better balance between making sure our technological dependence doesn't exceed our spiritual awareness. So let's remember that putting in the effort matters, that authenticity matters, that real paint matters, that going to live performances matters, that intimacy with physical contact matters. Let's not get too accustomed to experiencing everything through screens. Like Magritte showed us, just because what we're looking at has the appearance of art, it doesn't actually mean it is art. Half a century before Magritte's pictographic mind game, France happened to raise another relevant round of unlikely activists. What do dabbed water lilies, pastel ballet dancers, and countryside portraits of motherhood have in common? They were the result of a small group of revolutionary artists. Monet, who painted outside under the Parisian sun, Degas, whose dancers stretched backstage at the theater, and Morisot, who depicted the intimacy of domestic life. During the 1800s, the art world was ruled by the Salon in Paris. They would only exhibit work that addressed classical themes in a manner framed by tidy realism. When a critic saw these colorful and contemporary paintings of modern life done outside in the sunlight instead of in the studio, and with visible brushstrokes, he dismissed them as nothing but impressionists. When this handful of painters put up their work on the walls of their own gallery, the entire city, and eventually the world, took notice. These days, we look back at this movement as being pretty and decorative. What you may not know is that these were serious disruptors, along with Cézanne, Renoir, and Manet. They broke the system like a runaway steam train. They felt what they intuitively knew to be the pulse of their time. They listened to their inner guides, and in the process, pushed their culture forward. Art isn't about shopping around for a style like it's a box of cereal at a supermarket, or getting hired by Nike to design a sneaker. Art is about being in tune with ourselves and our society so that we can break free from the old system and forge a more fitting identity. That's what happened during all major movements, such as the Renaissance, Art Nouveau, Expressionism. Parallel revolutions happen with every great breakthrough in science as well. Artists created from their hearts, using their own two hands to expand our way of perceiving the world. Cut back to today. The fine art world at large does not now, nor has it ever, recognized psychic phenomena, UFOs, or extraterrestrials as serious subject matter. We, like the Impressionists, can change that. Ask yourself, what do you imagine our new Earth will look like? What will it sound like? What will it smell like? Conjure in your mind's eye what it'll be like and go from there. A meditative practice can revolve around delving into the emptiness that is completely devoid of individual identity. It can also be a fertile place for imagining what we want to manifest in our lives. What can you imagine for our future? I'll close out now with some suggestions. If any of them excite you, please run with it. How does all life on Earth coexist after we've resolved climate change? Consider telling stories about daily life in cities that are less mechanized and more organic. What about sharing the true history of Lemuria, Atlantis, and Inner Earth? Show how each emotional state is like a different floor of a house, or what healing ancestral trauma looks like. Try portraying consciousness incarnating as a blade of grass, and then a tree, and then a butterfly, and then a frog, to a human, to a dolphin, to an Andromedan, and then to a star. If you're excited by architecture, show us how buildings might integrate more harmoniously with nature. Show us homes powered by the abundant energy radiating from the battery that is Earth. Take us on board vehicles that fly by using their own gravity fields. If you're scientifically inclined, try simplifying topics like electric universe theory, how DNA holds memory, and the difference between space-time and time-space. Play around with intuitive marks and geometric shapes. Let's make a picture book for kids that shows how remote viewing, telepathy, and telekinesis actually work. Once we open the blinds to the fact that we are all really and truly divine beings of creation, there's no going back. This is where we return to the wisdom of youth and the importance of our inner visions. Today we know the awakening is happening. There may be hundreds or thousands of years of development between us, but we chose to be here now to participate in this amazing blossoming of our species. Now is our time to steer the conversation away from the pure materialism of science and fear-mongering of mainstream news. Let's offer pathways towards our most ideal outcome, because the only way it'll happen is when all of us come together and bring it to life. We don't need permission from the government, from the art establishment, from Hollywood, from the publishing industry, or any major corporation to get our ideas out into public view. Let's not wait for those in positions of authority to tell us what is true. Let's offer our sincere suggestions for clear directions. Let's use our gifts to invite people through the veil to the other side where everything makes sense. Let's help the public understand what's really going on. Let's reach out to each other and get in touch. Let's cheer each other on. Let's allow art in all of its forms to provide the pathways for the world we want to create as we embark in the next phase of humanity. Let's show what it means that we are all fractals of Source. Use your understanding, use your intuition, and of course, use your imagination.